The New Year's Eve Prowler. There's a town in Nevada that's getting ready for New Year's Eve. Extra police out, certain roads and businesses closed. Not because of the town's New Year's Eve festivities, even though that has something to do with it, but it's mainly to do with the New Year's Eve Prowler. That's what the townspeople have been calling him the past 15 years. He may not be known around the country, but in Nevada, he's what parents warn their children about at bedtime. For 15 years, the Prowler has stalked the streets of this town for one night only, New Year's Eve. And when that clock hits midnight and all the people start to celebrate, in the back of their minds they know another victim, or victims, have succumbed to the Prowler and his blade. In the 15 years he's prowled the streets, 25 people have been brutally murdered, from partygoers that were too drunk to stragglers. Even whole entire families have been found in their homes, massacred by the Prowler. The police warn every year to not go out on New Year's Eve, but no one listens, and they know it. You can't keep people off the streets on New Year's after all. So they try to take extra precautions year in and year out, hoping to stop the Prowler, but they failed every year to catch him. Now another year has come and gone, and it's New Year's Eve night. There's a group of friends at the Fisherman's Old Salty Hole pub and grill to celebrate the New Year's festivities. The group includes Ryan and Brandy, a newly married couple, and their friends Janet, Robert, Dave, and Daisy. They've been at the Old Salty Hole for about an hour, catching up, drinking, joking, having a great time. It's been a tradition for the group to come to the Salty Old Hole every New Year's Eve, except for Ryan. He joined the group recently when he married Brandy. Well, an hour before midnight, the group's other tradition is to give the Prowler a toast for good luck. 11 o'clock came, and the group raised their shots in the air. "To the Prowler!" Brandy shouted. Then Robert shouted, "Yes, to the Prowler! We show you nothing but humbleness and respect. Please hurt no one in our group tonight, or any night." The group all shouted, "Hear, hear!" and drank their shots, and went back to laughing and joking and having a good time. But not long after the last toast was given by the group, a belligerent voice piped up next to them at the bar. In the darkened corner, a man raised his head up out of his glass and turned to the group and laughed. "Same shit every year. You guys come in here and give that dumbass toast to the Prowler." When he said the Prowler, he threw up some air quotes and scoffed. "You fuckers think you're getting some good luck out of that toast. You always do, but for what? There is no goddamn Prowler. The pussy doesn't exist." Just then Ryan jumped in and said, "So you don't believe in the Prowler, mister? Then who do you think is killing all those people every year? Who fucking knows? All I know is it's not just one man. There's no fucking boogeyman, for Christ's sake. You fucking kids need to realize this ain't no fucking movie here. Fuck the Prowler. He's just some made-up pussy fart." The drunken man chuckled and drank a sip of his whiskey. Ryan looked at him and said, "You know, you should watch what you say and show some respect like the rest of us do. Or one New Year's Eve night, the Prowler might best you." Ryan then turned to the group and smiled, and they all laughed. The drunken man waved them all off and said, yeah, whatever you say," and went back to drinking. About 10 minutes later, the clock struck midnight. The whole bar shouted, "Happy New Year!" Everyone was hugging each other and toasting their glasses. Ryan wrapped his arms around Brandy and gave her a kiss to ring in the new year. He whispered in her ear, "Let's get out of here and celebrate back home." She looked back at him, smiled, and nodded yes. They said goodbye to their friends. They told the two to be careful. Ryan and Brandy said of course, then turned and walked out of the pub. They didn't live far, just around the block as a matter of fact. As they walked past the parking lot, they spotted the drunken man getting into his car. The man looked up at them and grinned. "Oh, watch out for that pussy Prowler. He's gonna get ya." Ha 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 ha, and started to laugh. Just then Ryan pulled out a blade that shined in the drunk man's eyes, then slashed it across the man's throat. As the man fell to his knees, holding his throat, struggling to breathe, his final breaths, Ryan and Brandy walked past. Ryan then turned and said, "Happy New Year," from the Prowler. Then turned and continued walking home with Brandy. Just a nice, unassuming couple, making their way back home. Happy New Year. I count down the remaining seconds as I watch the big screen in Times Square begin its countdown. 59, 58, 57. I shout out the numbers with the rest of the crowd. 53, 52, 51. A rumbling in my pocket interrupts my enthusiasm. I draw my phone out of the pocket to find a text from my friend. "You don't have much time left. Kill that blonde in front of you." I hesitate, confused. 37, 36, 35. Another text. "Hurry! She has a bomb in that backpack she's wearing." I look over at the girl he seems to be talking about. She didn't look harmful. But then, how did my friend know about her? He was way back in Boston. 23, 22, 21. I reach over and grasp the sides of her head. Before she can react, I crack her neck quickly to the side. She falls to her knees before crumpling to the ground before me. The nearby crowd scatters as I put my hands on my head, hardly believing what I had just done. 11, 10, 9. Another rumble comes from my pocket. Still in shock, I whip out my phone to read my friend's message. "Ha ha ha, just kidding, just kidding. Saw that hot chick next to you on live TV. Get her number. Happy New Year, bud." 3, 2, 1. He met her on New Year's Eve. It was at a New Year's Eve party 1 year ago today that he met her. Long blonde hair that shimmered in the lamp glow, eyes of glittering sky blue, and a trim little figure boxed up in a stylish black dress, adorned with a lovely silver bow. She smiled from ear to ear when his friend introduced them, and he was certain she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever met. They talked all night, and every conversation only served to convince him he'd finally found his soulmate, his true beloved. By the time the ball dropped and they shared their first kiss, he knew it was over. His marriage, that was. The divorce papers were drawn quickly and left on the kitchen table one morning before work. He didn't choose to hand them in person. 15 years of marriage, 2 children, and a tired wife who clearly let herself go wasn't worth the effort. He'd pay his share in court, of course, but it hardly mattered when he could begin his new life with the woman of his dreams. In the month he'd packed his things and moved into her tiny apartment. For the first time in so long, he insisted to his baffled friends and family he remembered what it was like to be in love. Seasons passed, and time drifted in splendor for him. He stopped answering the phone calls some time later, shortly after a grand vacation for two to Paris he surely could not afford. He introduced her to the children, yet they were older and more wary, and did not trust this woman who stole their father away. Yet he insisted they would come around, though it seemed more as though he simply lost interest in trying. The ring he bought her was hardly a surprise. He'd shown nearly everybody he could, exempting his wife-to-be. Yet she expected it nonetheless, as everybody did. He often talked of how he couldn't wait to make her his bride, to begin the life he'd almost missed, to reclaim the time he'd wasted in unhappiness. He told everyone how he planned to propose on New Year's Eve, 1 year to the day, in the privacy of their tacky, tiny love nest. Everyone told me, as the countdown begins, my once beloved husband will stand there, ring in hand, and wait. He'll be waiting for a woman who will never show. Then he'll get a knock at his door, and he'll find her, a perfect little package wrapped up like a present with a lovely silver bow. This time, literally. New Year's Eve. I look at the time on the TV, 11:52. Another ad is playing before they get to the New Year's Eve broadcast. It's not actually 11:52 for me. I'm just watching the celebration in New York. I always do. I watch as the time counts down. 11:53, 11:54, 11:55. As each minute passes, for some odd reason, a feeling of dread builds up. I look at my phone and text my friend in the UK. "What's it like in the new year?" He doesn't respond. That's odd. We always stay up for hours after midnight, even though we're in different time zones. Whatever. I guess he probably just fell asleep. The minutes inch nearer to midnight. 11:56, 11:57, 11:58, 11:59. The feeling of dread is even more extreme now. I think to myself, what's the difference between a feeling of dread and a feeling of doom? Yet, the TV cuts into my thoughts. 10, 9, 8. As each number is said, I feel worse. 7, 6, 5. I close my eyes. 4, 3, 2, 1. It seems like nothing happened. Then I open my eyes. There's static covering my TV. Seriously? Is this the anticlimactic resolution? So I change it to the news. Random ads are playing. I mean, is there really anything to cover at 10 at night? Then it switches. I watch in awe as a broadcast of New York comes on, then Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia, Boston, Charlotte, Miami. It's horrible. I can't tell what's happening. Is this a dream? Is it mass destruction? Are pieces of the East Coast are just missing? Dead? Gone? I try to think of a rational explanation. I think the people on the news are feeling the same way. And to everywhere else it's past midnight. It's happened too. I don't know why the people celebrating New Year's Eve didn't know. Images of death, destruction, and non-existence from other places are showed too, like Asia and Europe and Australia. I guess I forgot to tell you, but I shouldn't be writing this in the present tense. This should be in the past tense. This happened an hour ago. I guess if this is my final hour, I should let somebody know. Because I can't do anything else. My Caroline. I knew something was off the moment I got home. My wife, Caroline, had never been waiting for me to walk through the front door before. She was always off doing her own things, usually reading something in the backyard or getting dinner ready. As soon as I closed the door behind me, she hopped up from the couch and ran into my arms. It was like I'd been gone for weeks, bombarded with kisses and sweet nothings. And she was crying. I asked what was wrong, and she apologized. Nothing, hon. We need to talk about something important. Naturally, I thought it was good news. What is it? Are you... I didn't want to say it, but we'd been trying to get pregnant for over a year now. I'm fine, she said dismissively, which threw me off. It was like she didn't know what I meant. It's really strange, but I just need to tell you something. Come on. Okay, I agreed. She brought me to the couch, holding my hand along the way. I could feel her fingernails digging into my skin. She'd been biting them, something she only did when she was really on edge. The last time she had nails that jagged was when she finally quit smoking, during our first pregnancy scare. As soon as we sat down, Caroline launched right into it. I'm not who you think I am, she said, staring at me with an intensity I wasn't used to. What? You're like a sleeper cell or something? I joked, trying to keep composed. Listen, this is gonna sound real crazy, so you just gotta roll with it. This place, she explained, looking around us, ain't the only version of this place that there is. There's more than one, and I've seen two. Now. And I'm not from this one. Wait. Like a goddamn comic book? I stood up, annoyed. I thought you were serious, woman. Jesus Christ. Then she slapped me, and I knew she wasn't messing with me anymore. You died. Another you. My you. Driven off the damn road by a drunk driver last New Year's Eve. That's when I knew she was telling the truth. Last New Year's Eve, I'd barely swerved out of the way when a drunk driver came flying past me. I never told Caroline. Didn't want to worry her. So how the hell would she know? Okay, so how'd you get here then? She shrugged. Last week someone from the university reached out to me and said they could bring us together again. I got in this weird machine, came right back out. The guy outside looked real different, but he seemed to be waiting for me. Then I came here, so you could be my you. Okay, but still, you're not my Caroline. She leaned in for another hug, and this time I could smell the cigarettes on her breath. Don't worry about her, hun, she whispered knowingly. She won't be around here anymore. New Year's resolution. I'm at a New Year's Eve party. It's boring, so I thought I'd go ahead and write to all of my fellow Redditors out there. Along with the copious amount of alcohol consumption, it seems like everyone here keeps talking about New Year's resolutions. Everyone has them. My buddy Paul wants to stop drinking. He says this just before he shoots tequila. Brittany wants to sleep with fewer people. I just watched her go upstairs with some other lucky partygoer. Adam wants to spend money less frivolously. He bought all the booze for this shindig and just left to get more. Diana wants to lose weight. I just watched her finish the last of 7 slices of pizza. I have a resolution as well, but just like everyone else, I'm not sure it's going to last very long. I want to stop killing people. I say this as I hide under Sarah's car. waiting for her to step outside so I can slip my knife through her ankle. It's still 2017, right? Happy last year. 10! An acrid wind blew over Christopher's face. He rubbed the dust from his irritated eyes as they teared up. The ground he was sitting on felt warm, hard, and devoid of nature's love, just like everything around him. 9! The distant sound of people chattering, cheering, and dance music blaring was the only thing that broke the crippling silence of the world. Under normal circumstances, he'd be down there, drinking his problems away, deafening himself with synthetic melodies, indulging in one or more hedonistic substances. 8! But he was sober. Too sober. Oh, how he wished he was taken by the same madness that had gripped the minds of the rest of his species. How he wished he could have just... 7! Let go. The blood-red sky swirled in sick patterns, like eldritch tentacles wrapping themselves around the horizon and squeezing the life out of light and hope. By the time Christopher had realized what was causing all this, it was too late. 6! He briefly fought to save his loved ones when they were lost to the miasma of insanity. He tried to save anyone he could, but Christopher Marshall is just an average man with an average mind and average skills. A speck of dust in the sands of reality, nothing more than a prophet of apocalypse and a sea of voices. 5! There were no birds flying in the sky, no trees for them to build their nests and nurture their young. There were no bees buzzing about, no flowers to pollinate, or bushes to hide from predators. There were no ants to crawl on Christopher's hands that he laid on the ground, no mosquitoes to swat at, no cicadas to produce the orderly cacophony of ambiance. 4! The ground shook, and a distant car alarm went off, soon being rendered silent in a painful, distorted final bleep as magma coated the automobile, swallowing it into the broken earth. The resulting tremor shattered the windows of a nearby building, sending glass flying into the street amongst the smiling corpses lining the sidewalk. 3! Christopher made no effort to direct his eyes to the commotion happening beneath him. He made peace with the chaos because there was nothing else he could do. It was how the world is these days. He remembered how subtle it began and how quick it escalated. First, politicians speaking in one voice, saying the same exact sentence over and over and over again. Then, the disappearance of clouds worldwide. Before he knew it, people left their houses, lining up like ducklings behind their mother goose, as adult stores were handing out their entire supply of alcohol, cigarettes, and prescription drugs at no cost. That's when the reality settled in. 2! But there's no stopping it. No reasoning with anyone he approached, no force proving useful, no coercion to snap someone out of their madness. All he ever got as a response was an invitation to a nearby party, and how sick it was going to be. Sick is right, he thought to himself. The world is sick, more than ever now. 1! Christopher wanted to close his eyes. He wanted to lay down and be carried into the brink, to be coddled by the Reaper, to whatever life awaits him after this hell he went through. The emotional part of him hoped for a white void that he could lay in and rest in total silence. The logical part of him had known it was going to be an empty black void, surrounded by nothing and no one. Endless abyss for miles in every direction. Maybe it wouldn't be so different from now. He wanted to close his eyes, but he couldn't. His body wouldn't let him. So he sat upright and waited. "Happy New Year!" the world chanted, and Christopher watched with melancholic peace as the sun turned black. Y3K, New Year's Eve, year 3000, 11:59 p.m. I'm at a bar. Everyone's celebrating New Year's. I'm watching a projection of the countdown like a loser. I'm not sync like everyone else. My mom was a technophobe. She didn't allow the doctors to give me an iCore implant at birth. I hated her for it. When I was born, 96% of Earth's population had the implant. Now it's over 99%. They treated me like an outsider my entire life. The whole world basically functions as one brain now. A constant flow of information from individual to individual. People hardly use their mouths to speak, but I have to. I hate the way they look at me when I start flapping my gums. Like I'm less than them somehow. iCore monitors and regulates all your organ systems. It alerts you when there's something wrong. If it can't fix the problem itself, it usually can. I'm basically a ticking time bomb. I have no idea what's going on inside me. Every stomachache could potentially be the death of me. 10 seconds on the clock. Everyone starts counting down. I chug the rest of my beer. I just want this to end so I can go home. None of the girls here will even look at me. They know what I am. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I raise my glass to the new year. Nobody cheers. The projection briefly shows the number 3001, then blinks out. The building's climate control suddenly whirs to a stop. It's dead silent. The man sitting beside me seems to be frozen in place. He's still holding up his glass, smiling. I turn around in my seat. Everyone's frozen. Their bodies shake slightly, quietly. The man beside me shrieks. I shoot out of my seat. My heart is in my throat. He's still smiling, but his eyes are wide with fear. Blood suddenly gushes from every orifice of his face. They all start to scream. I try to run past them to the exit. I'm terrified. Their blood covers me. Some begin to convulse and fall to the ground. I trip over a body and fall into a soup of squirming, bloody bodies, screaming in agony. I'm screaming too. Most of the human race died that day. I'm looking for others like me. Those who don't have the Apple iCore implant attached to their brainstem. It's been 6 months. I haven't found anyone yet. The New Year Killer. The rats were surprised that after they told Tasha the identity of the New Year Killer, she just shrugged and continued rinsing the wine glasses, looking fatigued as always. She was a dishwasher at Oasis, the main club in town. "Aren't you going to call the police or somebody? He'll be here tonight." Tasha refused to look at the rats and stared at the soapy glassware. "I know who it is. You just told me. I'll stay clear of him. I'm not going to the police," she said after a pause. The rats understood. The police would not be friendly to Tasha. She had been brought into town to work, and the only reason she had been put to dishwashing at Oasis was that she was not pretty enough to work in the brothels, also owned by Oasis. Still, the rats had not expected her to be so cool about the New Year Killer, who was whipping up a frenzy in the town. "Can't you tell someone else?" "I don't care." Tasha shrugged again. The rats felt frustrated. The town was on edge, as were they. They didn't like humans disturbed and unpredictable, and did not appreciate a killer on their turf. The New Year killer had been striking at midnight every New Year since the pandemic began 5 years ago. He only killed once a year, to warn against crowds packed in bars and clubs, as he explained in his open letter. The result had been the opposite of what he had hoped. Already crowds were gathering, the excited chatter and body heat gaining momentum. The bar was packed. Tasha put some food out for the rats, but she was working at full speed otherwise. Staff was coming and going. The manager was yelling orders. The pace was becoming frenetic. There was little time left till midnight. The dance floor was packed, the noise and light reaching fever pitch. "Tasha, will you put rat poison in his drink?" Tasha looked scornful. "Are you crazy? The police will figure out it's me." The rats went back to chattering together. She could hear snatches of their conversation. "Just figure out his drink glass, Tasha. You can do that. And unlock the rat poison. Don't worry about anything else." Another worker screamed Tasha's name. She screamed back angrily at them, accompanied by a muttered stream of curses in her own tongue. Sighing heavily, and without saying anything, she unlocked a cupboard and then went up to one of the servers that she was a little friendlier with and whispered in her ear. The server didn't respond. Wordlessly, she picked out a glass and set it aside. Tasha turned to the rats whisking about the cupboards and gestured at the glass. There was barely space between the bodies on the dance floor. Tasha's friend moved around nimbly, handing out glasses. There was about 10 minutes left to midnight when somebody slumped heavily. Excited whoops went up. The crowds were thrilled to be at the site of this year's killing. It wasn't until much later that it became clear that it was the New Year killer who had been killed on the dance floor, and not another of his victims. I would like to give a heartfelt thank you to the special friends of the channel for your generous donations. If you would like to support the channel, the link is below in the description. Also, please send me your stories and poems to duchessofdarkness27@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram at duchessof.darkness or Twitter at duchessofdarkn2. Thank you so much for joining me, and I want to thank each and every one of you for your support and your kindness. Until next time.